Don't let boomers fool you and think that they were able to buy a house because they didn't make bad financial decisions, when the reality is they were able to make bad financial decisions because they bought a house. Let me explain this by using the house my parents bought in the 80s as an example. My parents originally bought this home for $60,000. The estimated value today is $1.15 million. Because of this huge run up in home prices, people started to feel really rich on paper. Imagine my parents had done nothing but live in that house and make those mortgage payments over the last 40 years. They would have made $1 million for doing literally nothing, just existing in a home. When banks saw this run up in home prices in the 2000s, they said, well, how can we use this to make more money? That's when they started really pushing something called a home equity line of credit. They were actually taking out ads for this product in the US and Canada. Because even if on paper your house is worth $1.15 million, you don't actually have $1 million, you are just living in your money. So the banks sold this HELOC or home equity line of credit as a way for you to access the equity in your home. In simple terms, if you purchased your home for $60,000 and the value today is $1.15 million, the equity that you have or the amount of money that you could borrow would be the value minus the purchase price, which comes out to $1.09 million. Now, this means that this person has access to over $1 million that they didn't have to do anything for. And just because you have access to a lot of money or have a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean that you are good with money. This is why so many pro athletes and lottery winners go broke. And the really insidious thing about these home equity lines of credit is that a lot of them are interest-only payments. So you never actually have to pay down the principal. So from a consumer perspective, you're like, oh, this is great. I have access to all this money and I don't have to pay it back. And from the bank's perspective, they frickin' love it because now you are paying interest in perpetuity. They're getting rich. But the problem is with the way that these were marketed, it allowed people to think that they were richer than they really were. Like, oh, I have this $1 million, when the reality is now you just have $1 million loan that you are personally responsible for paying back. But because people didn't see it that way, they started using these home equity lines of credit to buy cars and go on vacations and buy things that they didn't really have the money for in the first place. They were keeping up with the Joneses. And now people have these properties that they bought 40 years ago for $60,000 that are being foreclosed on today because they ran up so much debt thinking their home was a never-ending piggy bank. They weren't more financially savvy, they were lucky. And for a period of time, their bad decisions were kind of just swept under the rug. And now a lot of boomers are only able to retire because our generation is coming forth and having to pay these inflated prices for these homes, and it's funding their retirement and making up for the fact that they never saved or invested for their future. And don't let these people who bought these homes in the 80s tell you, oh, well, I bought this home because I knew it would be a great investment. Nobody knew that prices were going to run up the way that they did because it's not normal and it's not sustainable. They were simply born at an opportune time. So again, this is why I say what worked for your parents, the lifestyle that they lived, the things that they did to get ahead and have success, it's not going to work for our generation. We're living in a different time. We are living in a different world, and that is why we need to learn a different way. I became a millionaire. I went from $40,000 in debt to a millionaire at 30 years old when I stopped listening to society and traditional advice. Want to learn more about it? We have 4 free money trainings available. Find them on our website under freebies.